Hello, everyone. I hope
Hello.
anybody can hear us. We are having, just before we started the show, and Graham, welcome, Simone, welcome. Before we started, our connection is just terrible. It still looks like it is, but we're going to go ahead and try it anyway. So in the meantime, hello, guys. Hello, ladies and gents. Simone, you look a little bit frozen to me. And if you want to talk, you need to unmute. Hi, Yvonne, Katrien, Huub, Jurgen, Matthew. Let's just give it a second. Hopefully it will clear up. But yeah, I'm having. Can you hear me fine, Graham?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Nice.
Oh, and Simone.
Simone, how are you doing there? Yeah. And Matthew is saying the time zones have aligned again. They have. Good morning, Dagmar and Philip. And hello, everyone. Well, Simone does look happy, but...
Yeah, frozen happy, but, hey, happy.
Frozen happy.
Could be frozen unhappy.
Yeah, could be. Anyway, yeah, let's see. In the meantime, we'll just wait if she can clear up her connections. I hope it will clear up in due time. Jennifer, good to see you as well. And Matthew says, reporting in, he can hear me fine. Okay, that's great. Yeah, we'll just have to deal with this. So in the meantime, Graham, thanks again for joining the show. You've been one of our earliest guests since we started doing this last year. And it's great to have you back with us.
Thank you.
And yeah, forgive me for the connection, everyone. It's just not working with us at the moment, but we're going to push ahead. And Graham, for those who don't know, Graham is yeah, not only a longtime viewer and participant here on the show, but also a returning guest. Always loves to come and always loves to photograph the weird and the wonderful here in North Sulawesi, which is what you'll be talking about with us here. And let's... No, Simone. And yeah, you're going to talk a little bit about photography, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Here.
This is where we're just staring at frozen pictures. Oh my Lord, this is really not working.
Oh, well, I think Simone has found somewhere with slightly better reception. There we go. Yeah, I think.
I am all the way on top.
Well, we can hear you now, and your picture is moving, so that's an improvement. Most of the time.
I'm not hearing or seeing anything at the moment. Yeah, it's very unstable.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It comes and goes. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the airwaves are working against us. In the meantime, Graham, you've prepared a presentation for us.
Yeah.
So I suggest, hello Petra, good morning. Siep, everyone,
I'm in
good to
room
see you.
11 now.
Salama pagi. And hi Simone.
Hi.
Any luck from your end, Graham?
No, well, the act of saying hi, I think, froze the whole system again. So too much bandwidth.
Yeah, I guess it did.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So I will just share your presentation. People are saying they're already looking forward to it. So I'm putting it up on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Simone. Yeah, everyone's taking turns being frozen right now. But I would suggest Graham just start with his presentation, and then we'll just take it from there. Are you ready, Graham?
Yeah, sure. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully this will go well, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So what I agreed to do was just talk a little bit about maybe starting your underwater photography journey, and that's really what I'm concentrating on, rather than building on systems that you might already have. And I've put something together on that. Feel free to disagree, feel free to add to it. I know that Matthew, who's on the call, uses the same camera that I'm talking about and has a lot of good experience with that. And then I thought what we would do is just share a few photographs, which I took at Thalassa in 2018. The original aim was to sort of weird and wonderful of North Sulawesi, and I thought I might have to comb through several years of material, but I didn't. I actually had to just comb through 1 year of material, which was pretty enjoyable. Anyway, so that's the aim. So please put in your questions, and I fully expect to be interrupted on the way through, and that's absolutely fine. So let's kick off. So starting at the very beginning, as the sound of music says, if you don't have an underwater camera, and that's the sort of position I've taken here, and you also don't want to spend a fortune because it's unusual for people to leap in and spend thousands of dollars, I think there's really one clear choice in the market, and that is the Olympus TG6. And they've been very successful up from the TG4, 5, and 6. And the TG4 and 5 are still very good if you've got those, or you can pick them up secondhand. And actually, the TG5 will fit in the TG6 housing, but we can talk about that later. Quite a long way second is the Nikon W300, and both of these can go underwater with no housing. So that's why I've chosen them. The Olympus is waterproof to 15 meters. The Nikon W300 is waterproof to 25 meters. So from that perspective, it's superior, but in everything else, really the Olympus is quite a long way in front of that. So no housing. It shoots in both RAW and JPEG. Most of us shoot in JPEG. But if you can shoot in RAW files, which are bigger files, then the data that you have is not compressed, or some of the information is thrown away. When you take a photograph in JPEG, and I'm sure a lot of you know this, some of the information is thrown away and not used, and it's compressed, which is why the files are smaller. Normally you wouldn't notice the difference, but when you come to process photographs, the more information you have to work with, the better. The Olympus TG6 also takes 4K video, which is pretty impressive. So you can probably use it as a half reasonable substitute for something like a GoPro, although the GoPro will do a better job of movies. The Olympus TG6 will do a better job of stills. And it does a better job of movies than the GoPro does of stills. So, but you make your mind up with whatever you've got there. They kind of do one job really well. And this does a pretty decent job of 4K video, but not as good as something that's dedicated to it. It's very compact, it's very light, very durable. It's fantastic macro and microscope capability. So you can focus right down to 1 centimeter away with this TG6. The only drawback, and this isn't going to worry most people until you get further into the photography, there is no manual control. You cannot set up all the components manually. There are some workarounds that you can do, but you don't have full manual control, which, as I say, for most people really doesn't matter. And if you're starting your photography, I'd suggest it doesn't matter. So cost of that, roughly $400 US. You can get it for less. You might pay slightly more, but it'll be something around that. And if you want to save a bit of money, get the TG5, maybe even get it secondhand if someone's upgrading to the TG6, and you'll save 100, maybe even 200 bucks, and it's still an excellent, excellent camera. So having got the camera, you can start to work with that, but chances are you're going to upgrade from there. And here's what you're going to do next. You're probably going to add a housing. It's down to 15 meters, as I say, without a housing. But once you add something like the Olympus housing, you can go down to 45 meters. I'm not advocating that, but It is rated 45. So certainly down at 30 meters, it's not going to have an issue. And I'd suggest thinking about an housing, even if you're just diving at 10 or 15 meters, it just gives that added level of safety. If you do have it in a housing and the housing leaks, the camera is not going to get damaged at 15 meters at all. Could it, if it was just on its own? Well, possibly. You just raise the possibility of that. If a door's not quite shut properly, although it does warn you if it thinks the door isn't shut properly, on maybe the battery or the card housing, or you've done something else, it will actually try and warn you. But if you have it in a housing, you've just got another level of security. And if you're diving below around 10 meters, probably 5 actually, but anyway, 10 meters, you're going to want more light and more color than is available at that depth. There is a flash on the Olympus, but it's pretty weak. And if you have the housing, you can see on that housing there on the top right-hand side, it has a sort of filter or a screen, which makes the light diffuse and not as intense. It also makes it wider angle than if you just use the flash on its own in the camera. That can work fairly well for close-up, for the macro or even the micro side of it. Micro less so, because micro is really close to the lens, and sometimes the flash gets one half of it, not the other. But if you have a housing, that's another advantage. But you're probably going to add something like this CNC YS3 here, which is going to set you back $400 or $500, something around that. You can pay a lot of money for a strobe. You can get them down to about 300 US. You're going to want an arm as well, a flexible arm, as you can see there, as well as a cable to link it up to the camera. And then you're going to need to be able to attach that light somehow, and you're going to end up with some kind of tray, something like at the bottom there. So that will set you back about another $950 US. You can pay more than that, both for trays and for housings, and indeed for the flash unit. So you could easily pay $2,000 for that. If you get something like a Nauticam housing, which is an aluminium housing, rather than the plastic Olympus, which is very good, by the way. So now you're at a running total of about $1,350 US for the cheaper end, but still good end of the material to start out your camera journey. And if you're going to take it up from there, what you're probably going to do is add another strobe or light, and you'll probably want to add a wide angle wet lens. And what you mean by that is that you can screw that lens on underwater. So you can just use the normal camera or the housing, and you can screw that on as and when you want it. The Olympus does a reasonable job of wide angle, but it does a much better job with one of these lenses. It adds quite a field of view. You can get different types of wet lens. This one is a 120 degree wide angle wet lens. And that's going to be about another $900. But again, you can spend more. You can spend much more on a wet lens. You can spend much more on a strobe or a light. But all up, that's probably going to be $2,250, plus or minus a little bit. So it's still not cheap, but considering you can get into the photography for under $400, that's probably a pretty good place to start. So if you've got into that and you go, either I want to take it up a level, or alternatively, you already have a good compact camera and you want to take that underwater, you're probably going to be doing something like this. So the current cameras that really work well with underwater are those three there. I'm not saying others don't, but those are probably the best three there. And then you're definitely going to need a housing, because those are not ordinary cameras. So it's going to be a very short photographic trip if you don't have a housing on it. Three different types of housing there. The cheapest one on the right-hand side sets you back about $500 or $600. Most expensive one, as you look at it on the left-hand side, the Nauticam housing probably sets you back $1,200 or $300. So again, you can put them in different housing, and the isotter in the middle is somewhere between those two. So that gets you probably to the next level. You've got higher definition, more megapixels, you've got larger sensors. I'm not sure the change is worth it. in that if you have one of these cameras, great way to get them underwater. If you're going to start underwater photography, I actually wouldn't necessarily leap in here. I'd probably stick with that TG6. It really is such a remarkable piece of machinery. And then after that, you're back to adding a strobe, which you'll definitely need, and a tray, and then probably a second strobe. And again, you can add a series of lenses to this, not only wide angle, but also macro lenses. So you could run up a total there of probably $4,000 fairly promptly if you were getting into that next level. And then the final level, which I won't talk about a lot, but I'll just give you an inkling about it, is to take your DSLR underwater. As I said, I think the first step's to win the lottery. That makes it much more affordable, the whole thing. And then there is a pretty big price hike. Whatever the cost of the DSLR is, and of course they can range at much more than $4,000, but somewhere in there, you need to buy the separate lenses, macro and wide angle lenses. Again, you can pay a lot of money for those. Camera housing, again, you can get the less expensive ones right up to, the aluminium type housings that will last forever, and you can batter sharks with if they come towards you too fast. And then you've got the ports or the housings, if you like, for the individual lenses. So if you have a wide angle lens on, you need a different housing or port for that lens than if you have a macro one on, for example. And then you're definitely, if you're in here, you're going to invest in the 2 flashes and strobes and flashes, same term, plus the arms and the cables. And you'll notice that the arms there have got sort of, they're quite wide. They're called float arms because this unit gets a little bit heavy underwater. And you want to try and get it as close to negatively buoyant as you can. And then there's a whole load of other things which you can add in forever and ever. So again, quite a big step up. Certainly the quality is a step up, but I'm going to say not so that most people would notice it. Certainly on day-to-day photographs, certainly if you're posting, on Facebook and those sort of things, it certainly wouldn't be worth it for that. I think as I say, that Olympus TG6 will do pretty much everything you want it to, and you won't be the friend of the excess baggage clerks either at the airport. Once you've got all this kit, you're trying to carry as much of it as you can in your hand luggage, but invariably 8 or 9 kilos of it makes it into your hold baggage as well, which combined with your diving gear means that your whole kit is going to start weighing around 30 kilos would be my suspicion, even if your dive gear isn't terribly heavy. So I might just pause there. I might go back to Arjen to see if there's any questions or comments about the photography side of things or the photographic equipment side of things before we get into some of the actual photographs.
Thanks, Graham. I just muted myself to give your presentation as much bandwidth as possible. And let's see. No, we don't. We just have people checking in. I did ask people in the chat to ask you any questions or comments that they might have.
Okay.
Yvonne is saying that she says, "I think I'll stay with my Sea Life set." Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's worth changing from a Sea Life set, say, to a TG6. I do think the TG6 is a much better camera, but if you've got a Sea Life and you've probably got the Sea Life strobe with it as well, then absolutely I would stick to that. You'll know if that does the job you want it to. And then I would suspect your next upgrade, if you're doing that, is really quite a step up from there. So I certainly wouldn't change the Sea Life for the Olympus end of the market. Absolutely not. Right.
And yeah, that's about it so far.
Okay, cool. Well, let's have a look at some photographs then.
Nice.
So Weird and Wonderful was the brief in terms of some of the snaps out of Sulawesi. You probably recognise this. This is out of one of the tube anemones and just converted into a black and white shot, but certainly looks pretty weird and wonderful from here. And as I said initially, I thought I'd probably have to go through several years of shots to get some of the weird and wonderful, but I really didn't. I just looked through the 2018 shots and I was really surprised at the range of fish life, corals actually, which I haven't concentrated on here, and creatures overall that were in that trip. It was really quite remarkable. And it just means I really have to get back to Sulawesi as soon as possible, as do the rest of us, of course. So my apologies, some of the shots probably aren't the best because I really haven't picked them from a whole load of years. I really have just picked them from that one group of 2018. But as I say, you'll get the idea. So this is the leafy scorpionfish, and I've kept together the sort of fish that the diver might choose to beware of. As you know, especially in Lembe, but not just in Lembe, it pays to have good buoyancy because to pretend you can see these creatures and you know you're going to put your hand down on something, well, you've got better eyesight than me. Not hard. Luckily, the guides have excellent eyesight, so they're spotting a lot of these things, but they really are just tremendously well camouflaged.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Graham. Yeah. I've got a couple of comments coming in after a delay. Yeah. Hoop is asking, do you have any comments on the quality of the housings for mobile phones and the way of using these?
So not really. So let me give you some context on that. And the reason I say that is because I got an early housing for a mobile phone and it was hopeless. Luckily, I tested it at home in fresh water before doing anything else with it. But I know that they've moved on a lot since then, and I think it's pretty inevitable that the housings for mobile phones will be pretty good. And on that basis, if someone said, well, what about this or nothing? I'd go, absolutely, take it, because the mobile phones really do take excellent photograph. And I did see some footage about 2 months ago that was shot on a mobile phone, semi-professional footage. Now it was surface and snorkeling, so it wasn't at great depth, but the quality of it was absolutely fantastic. Disappointingly good, I would have to say, having invested so much in camera gear. So to Hoop's point there, I think that will get better and better. I know that there's already some new housings out for the cameras. I can't speak firsthand about them, I'm afraid, but I think definitely worth looking at.
Right. All right. And Philip from Canada, he's asking, would you recommend an upgrade from a TG4 to a TG6?
I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to ask Matthew to just message in on that one if he's there, because that's exactly what he did. So he didn't go to the 5. And didn't think that was worth it, but did think it was worth it in going to the 6. And Matthew's been using that TG4 for some time, so is a better user of it than me. I've got a TG6. I didn't have a 4, but I do think it probably is worth the upgrade. But I'd be interested in Matthew's feedback if he gives that. So if he does give that, then just chip in with that if you would, Arian.
Yeah, sure.
And if not, I'll have to remind him to get back on the call. Sorry.
Exactly. And with that said, please do continue. And good morning, Will. And Catherine will pick up your question in a bit.
Okay. All right. So as I say, diver beware. And these things have a number of names. So 2-stick stingfish, and it's because it has a couple of sticks that sit up really on its back. But is also called a devil scorpionfish, as are about 2 or 3 other things. So let's have a look at those. So just a common or garden scorpionfish, which is a bit rude because there's a whole range of them. There's rather a lot of them, and I have no clue which specific one that is. But obviously, again, they're just tremendously well camouflaged. As you know, they're ambush predators. They sit there and wait, and then they can move extremely quickly. Although they don't ever look in danger of moving, they certainly can move extremely quickly. And this one on the right, most commonly called the false stonefish, but also sometimes called a devilfish. I think it's got a surreal look about it, I have to say. And then the one on the left here, the demon stinger. I mean, really, who's going to see that? It's just a pile of rubble with eyes.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It is a most bizarre fish, but again, you really don't want to be putting your hand on that sort of thing. So you can see the mouth just at the front there, and you can see a couple of its spines laid over on the side, at the rear. But you've got to be really careful with that. You'll also actually see at the front right of that shot one of its arms out. They tend to crawl around the bottom and then noodle around and see what they stir up. So they can and do swim, but quite often you see them crawling around the bottom. A bit like this guy on the right, the fingered dragonet, which again is the most bizarre fish. I think you'd have to agree. Yes, they do swim, but they spend a lot of their time. I've never seen one swim, actually. I've only ever seen them crawling around the bottom, but I've always thought that they look as though someone stuck bits of them together. They've taken bits from other fish and lumped it on this one. Anyway. And then the rhinopia, several types of rhinopia, but this is the one that I've seen in Lembe, Eschmeyer's rhinopia. Fairly rare, and probably the first time I saw it, which was actually on my first trip to Sulawesi, I didn't realise quite how rare it was. Otherwise, I would have taken an awful lot more photographs of it. But yeah, a beautiful fish, and again, quite bizarre in the way it looks, but one of that scorpion fish family again, or Scorpenidae more broadly. Cockatoo waspfish on the left, and if you've seen those, they're just flopping from side to side like a leaf. And again, if you're not looking carefully, you will mistake them for a rather boring leaf. Not related to the flamboyant cuttlefish, of course, on the right-hand side, which are quite venomous, but I've never heard of anyone having a problem with them. But quite again bizarre and very, very flamboyant. We have a gay Mardi Gras parade here in February. They would fit right in, I can tell you that. And then really, again, this category, only their mother could love them category. The giant anglerfish or frogfish, they do tend to get called both. They are properly an anglerfish. Not that you can see its lure so much on the left-hand one. You can see it on the right-hand one, on the hairy one, which is that coiled up one, and it dangles it out in front of it and entices other fish to just gently wander into its mouth. And again, they do look quite bizarre. This one's also a giant frogfish, which I think just shows you how well they adapt their camouflage to the surrounding corals. If you look at the one previously on the left-hand side, there's a giant frogfish, and so is this.
Fantastic. Just to interrupt you once again, Graham.
Of course.
Let's see. Katrin says about upgrading to a DSLR. She says it's so much money in a few years, and then the weight is too much to travel after you make a new upgrade. She's also saying after DSLR, a lot of divers upgrade to MFT cameras. Can you elaborate on that?
I assume you're talking about medium format cameras.
Yeah.
I think. So there is a step between DSLR, and the reason I didn't concentrate on that, some of them use a 4/3 system, some of them are mirrorless, and they're very, very good quality cameras. But the overall cost, if you put together a system on a good mirrorless camera, it is really not a lot different. It is lighter. You can probably shave a few $1,000s off. It's still going to be damn expensive. So that's why I didn't kind of go that midway. Now, if you're talking medium format in the old medium format, so you're talking really large format into things like Mamias and Hasselblads and those sort of things, I don't think you're talking about that, because now we're talking lots and lots of zeros on the end of it. So I suspect you're talking about that step between the full-frame DSLR and the compact camera, which is either a 4/3 system camera or alternatively it's full-frame and mirrorless.
Yeah,
but the cost is going to set you back about the same.
Right. And we've invited Matthew to see if he wants to join us here. But anyway, he was elaborating on the upgrade from TG4 to TG6. and he
Great.
said he would agree to upgrade and keep the TG4 as a spare. They are quite different, and the TG6 does take some more quote-unquote learning.
Yeah, I know he's. I know he's happy with the upgrade and happy to have made the upgrade, and he wasn't going to do it for the 5, but he's felt it's definitely worth it for the 6. But yes.
Yeah. And Simon, hang in there. I'm feeling your desperation to try and join us and connect every time.
Yeah.
She's got a terrible connection. I can hear you actually.
I heard something.
I heard something.
You can.
Yeah, there
Okay.
you go.
Yes.
That is something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hi
Welcome
guys.
back.
Hi Graham. Hi everybody.
Hi, Simone.
Before I'm going to be thrown out again, I have a message.
Too late.
Yeah, there you go. It's really unreliable. Yeah, no, that she's frozen again. Oh, Kasiang, as we say here. And just to continue, I also have a question from the Van der Maas family, Graham, if you would.
Yes.
They're asking, do you have any tips for GoPro
To number
users?
4.
So GoPro, yeah. So I have a GoPro. Matthew has a GoPro as well. That in fact he puts on the top of the housing for. He's got a connection there. You can put it on the top of the housing for his TG6, and indeed for the 4. So for the GoPro, as I say, I've concentrated on stills photography rather than video photography. I do think the GoPro does an excellent job of wide-angle movies, wide-angle video. It does a really good job of that. Super clear, lovely wide-angle, great frame rates, good quality, etc. I think it does compared to the still cameras, which is fair enough, excuse me, it does a very average job of still photographs. I know you can take a still out of the video stream, and it's a lot better than it was, but there's no comparison really. So if you think in videos and you want videos, absolutely make the GoPro your key choice and occasionally take a still out of it. If you think largely in stills, then make the TG6 or a camera your primary source and occasionally take a video out of it. So it really depends, I think, about the way that you think about that. The only tip that I would give for videos is really nothing to do with the type of camera that you're using, and there are some alternatives now, some quite good ones to the GoPro, but that GoPro Hero 9 I think is still top of the field. Is if you're taking video, then think about telling a story. It's tempting to just, oh look, there's a frogfish, let's take a video of it, which actually becomes boring quite fast because they don't move. But then when you put a story together, maybe with a number of frogfish, or about starting the day, getting in the boat, seeing some of the people in the boat, getting in the water, going down, some coral reef, and you're thinking about the story, and then at the end of the day, you're coming up, and so on, you can put together a nice story. And I'd encourage you on videos to have snippets of video of probably no more than 5 to 7 seconds of a single held shot. And you'll go, that's really, really short. But if you go and look at TVs and movies and films, it's relatively rare that they hold a shot for any more than 6, 7, 8 seconds. Even when they're doing a face-to-face interview, they'll switch to another camera angle, or they'll switch to the person asking the question. Why? Because they know it's boring to just hold that angle. Same thing holds true with video. So if you're putting together video, think about telling a story rather than just a clip. And then when you edit it all together, try and keep it to 2 to 3 minutes, because your friends get very bored after 5 or 6. You think it's great because you were there, but it just doesn't cut through. So just a couple of tips there in terms of video shooting, not specifically about the GoPro.
Right. Okay. Thank you. All right. Please do continue, Graham.
Okay, doke. So other weird and wonderful creatures we have plenty of them. And I just put this one in because everyone loves clownfish, or an anemone fish is the correct word. But again, you get this variety. This was out at Angel's Window, so it's outside of Lambeth Straits, but again, just a beautiful, beautiful dive site. So then I've just gone, okay, well, here's some of the well-hidden ones, which I'm sure many of you have seen and been lucky enough to have pointed out to you. Certainly I was initially. If the guy didn't point them out, I had no clue what was being pointed at. I have to confess, find a number of shots, not so much on this trip, but on previous trips where I have clearly taken a shot that one of the dive guides is pointing to, and I'm taking it to keep them happy. I have no clue what they're pointing at. So I've just taken the shot. I've taken two of them, said, yep, okay, thank you very much indeed, and moved off. And then afterwards I've gone, that's what they were talking about. Oh dear, they have good eyesight, those guys and girls. So the whipped coral shrimp, and you'll get those whipped coral gobies as well. But again, just beautifully camouflaged, perfect in their environment. Tricky to see, but once you start looking for them, you'll see more of them. And once you kind of lock into the size of them, it's kind of helpful. That's probably about 1 centimetre, something like that, in terms of size. And they will move around the coral unhelpfully as you're trying to take a photograph. Likewise, it's always worth stopping and looking at these sea pens for what's living in amongst them. This happened to be a crab that was in there, sort of holding its filter feeders up to see what can float by. But you never know what's in there. It certainly holds shrimps and crab in this particular case. So always worth a look. The pygmy pipe horse, as it says, pygmy, so it's quite small and definitely looks like a piece of seaweed just floating around there. Again, quite weird. Decorated crab on the right. I'm going to call it that. I'm sure this decorated crab has a specific name, but I have no clue what it is. But it's beautifully camouflaged. Again, if it just got down off its feet and lay on the bottom there, it would be just perfectly camouflaged for that environment. It tends to give itself away when it picks up and moves. But other than that, you'd probably swim over. I would anyway. Swim over the top of it. Another decorated crab on the left-hand side, again, just perfectly blended in with its environment. You can see its eyes there in the middle of the, just in the top third of the shot in the middle. But again, just a beautiful example of the weird and wonderful, I think. And then the bubble coral shrimp. It's weird enough having a coral that's made of floppy bubbles, but then to stick a shrimp in it where you can see its brain, is kind of equally weird, I think. And they're certainly not in every one, but as we know, it's either that or the orangutan crab that we're hoping for in those bubble corals, and you get used to looking at them. Initially, of course, you swim past them, you don't see them, but then you know that that's where they tend to hang out. The emperor shrimp, always a favourite, and you might look at that and go, well, it's pretty obvious. Look at the colours there. The thing is the size of it. That's probably 0.5 centimetre. So it's pretty small, and they tend to ride around on sea cucumbers, but definitely not all sea cucumbers. So you're going to look at a lot of sea cucumbers before you find an emperor shrimp, and you've probably missed a few on the way, but they are beautiful shrimps there. And the peacock flounder on the right, really weird fish again, especially as most of the time they're just nestled into the sands. They've just got their eyes sticking out there. And as I'm sure you know, flounders start their life as relatively normal fish. They have normal fish shape, if you like. They have their eyes on each side, but then they have what's called a travelling eye. And as they become adult, that eye moves around and they flatten out, and they spend more time flopping around the bottom of the seabed than they do anything else. So again, that's got to be weird. And you can see its mouth just in front of its right eye there, just waiting for something to come close. And then the corals, and the reason I got the shot on the left is I think the corals are beautiful in themselves, but of course, hiding in plain sight in the middle of that coral is the Bargibanti pygmy seahorse. and there's a rather easier to see version on the right-hand side. But again, just absolute classic camouflage. This again, Angel's Window. If you haven't dived that, get over there, get outside the Lembo Straits and dive that. It's just a great dive spot and quite different from what you're seeing in the Straits itself. Equally fascinating. But I'm always fascinated by these, and to try and get a good shot of these is hard. It really is. Sorry?
No, I was just, it is very hard. And related to that, I don't know how you should take this, Graham, but Huub is saying, and this is about what you mentioned earlier about the dive guides and their supreme vision. He says, at your age and mine, that's how it works with the dive guides and macro.
Well, one of the secrets here, Huub, which I'm, hopefully you've found, is to get your mask optically adjusted so that when you're looking through it, it's like looking through a pair of glasses. It's a revelation. If you haven't done it, go off and do it. It's worth every cent of, well, it's about $400 here, but worth every cent. So yes, you're right.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Yvonne mentioned also in the chat. She says, I now have a mask with reading glasses.
There we go. Perfect. Perfect. So if you haven't got an optical mask and you wear glasses, make the investment, because I tell you what, it makes a heck of a difference. So no, I'm not the least bit offended by Huub at all. He's absolutely right. I think it also helps, though, when you've seen these creatures, when you've seen them a few times, you get better at finding them for two reasons. One is you understand the habitat, you understand the environment, you understand the way that they live in that environment a bit more. But secondly, you know what you're looking for. And it sounds obvious. I can show you the photograph on the right. You go, well, I know what I'm looking for. Actually, it's probably more useful to see the photograph on the left because you know how difficult it is to find them and the sort of scale they are compared to those polyps of coral. And I think that's what helps you find more as you dive more. I think when we start diving, well, I don't know about you, but when you start diving, if it isn't the size of of a 1 meter fish, you've probably seen nothing the whole dive. You just come out going, there was nothing there. And then slowly, as you get more comfortable in the environment, your buoyancy gets better, and you see more. Then I think you see stuff that's smaller and smaller. So initially, you'll see the sea cucumber. You're definitely not going to see the emperor shrimp. Right. And then finally you get to what's living on the emperor shrimp. So I think there's a matter of scale here as well. But no, I agree with Huub completely.
All right.
There we go. I said we'd get to the orangutan crab, also parked up in the bubble coral there. And then the lovely candy crab. Sometimes it sits right on the end nicely for the photograph. But this one just happened to have a few babies it was carrying around on its back as well. I must admit, I'm not 100% convinced I saw the babies when I took the shots. I think I saw them afterwards going, oh, look at that. That's cool. So that's what I mean. The candy crab itself isn't so big. It's probably, 1.5 to 2 centimeters, something like that. But obviously the babies on the back are even smaller. Again, a couple of other ones. The robust ghost pipefish, again, which looks like a bit of a leaf. Normally in pairs, you find them. Bigger one and the smaller male, just floating around, looking like a bit of leaf. And then the Napoleon snakegill on the right, which I think is always weird. And, of course, is extremely largely buried. The thing I've learned with the snakegill over time is to have a good look around the snakegill, because quite often there's some interesting shrimps around it waiting to feed off the leftovers. So I've learned that over time as well. We've probably learned that with morails. Let's see if there's a cleaner shrimp somewhere around its mouth or nose or something like that as well. So I think that sort of thing helps as you dive a little bit more.
Yeah. Just a second, Graham. I think Simone, I want to give Simone a bit more of a chance to pipe up if it's possible. If you can hear us, Simone.
Of course.
Yeah, let's just give her a few moments.
Okay, guys, I really don't know if you can hear me and how long you can hear me. But I just want to have everybody know that in this past week we have improved Thalassa Lembe, the pool and the jetty and many other smaller things to make the place look really nice again, because we want to open it, although limited for now, only the weekends. And that is an important step.
Arian, can I suggest, let Simone interrupt whenever she does get coverage. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll kick on then.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then again, just part of the wonderful, the Cassiopeia, or upside down jellyfish, it's called. Now that shot is the way it was shot. So it's heading back down towards the bottom. When it gets to the sand, the jelly part sits on the sand, and then you get the coverage above it. So again, it's extremely well camouflaged and quite unusual from that perspective. That spiny tiger shrimp, again, relatively unusual. I certainly have only seen a couple of them. I've looked for them and had people detailed to look for them for me, which is probably more important. But again, that's in Lembe, so lucky to see that beautiful creature. Couple of other ones over there. The bristle worm, if you've had that, don't touch them. Don't let them touch you. I've had that once. Took me about a week and a half to really get rid of the irritation, and that's really what it was. It wasn't massively painful, but it was constantly itchy and red for at least a week and a half, whatever I did to it. I didn't know I'd brushed against it, but I obviously had. So they can be a bit irritating. And the rather aptly named Donald Duck shrimp on the right-hand side. So obviously it's got that hinged back on it and the eye towards the right-hand side. They're pretty, again, relatively unusual. Not a lot known about them. I did some homework just to see what was known about them, and the answer is not an awful lot because they can't find them. But Thalassa's dive guides can, which is good. And then these two, the ghost pipefish, normally hanging around, those sort of spiny urchins and the like, soft corals and sponges, can be, these two floated out, so that was very good of them. Nice to see. But you can normally find those. They're normally a bit darker in colour than that, the black ones that you get there in Lembe. And then the rather infamous disco clam, for want of another term, where that rather bright neon electric blue light flashes to attract fish in and say, come and dance with me. And then they go, oops, one-way ticket, unfortunately. But again, don't see too many of them, but they're great fun when you get to have a look at them. And that's it. So we've got sort of 10 minutes or so, but I certainly didn't want to go over time. But I will say a word about these guys, the mantis shrimps. Apart from the speed at which they move, the vision that they have is quite amazing. So they see polarized light, they see ultraviolet light, and they have, I don't know who did this research, but they have 16 color receptors in their eyes. We have 3. Dogs have 2, birds have 4. For example, that gives you an idea, but they think they actually don't see color that well, despite all those color receptors, but they're just getting a whole load of other information about the reef with that polarized and UV light. But always a joy to see, and quite unique the way they swivel their eyes around there. So those are the shots that I have to share. Happy to try and answer questions on them or other answers on photography as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Graham. Let me see. We have, well, not questions insofar as compliments. Certainly, yeah. Dick is saying, thanks for all these incredible, beautiful pictures. And indeed, it's stunning photography, Graham.
Thank you.
Simone, with her unfortunate connection problems, she's delegating the responsibility of padding to me.
Well, don't need to pad. I wanted to make sure, because you can show photographs all day and they're interesting for the person who took them and not necessarily for anyone else.
Yeah. And Jennifer and Axel, they're both amazing. Many thanks, and many thanks to you, the Lhasa team. Well, thank you, Jennifer, and Axel and Philip are all complimenting you with the fantastic photography. So let me just kick off what Simone was trying to say. I don't know how much you caught from that when she tried to tell us, but yeah, as she mentioned, we are going to try and open Lembe, Thalassa Lembe, in May for the weekends only so far. We've had the team come in here to fix our jetty that has been, it really needed some repairs. We've done a couple of other small improvements, some cleanup in order to hopefully reopen our doors in May, at least only for the weekends. And there are also a couple of travel bubbles opening as well. Apparently Australia, Singapore in June, and Singapore, Bali in May.
I just need to correct you first. I think that's the travel industry talking. So we have now opened a travel bubble with New Zealand as of the beginning of this week. So that has happened, and we certainly are looking to open them with others. Singapore is a natural target. Fiji is another natural target. So there are a couple of those countries that are being talked about, but can I just say they're being talked about in the press at the moment rather than by the government. So
right, yeah. So yeah, that's our plan at the moment, and we just have to, because it's very, very difficult to make any kind of plan these days. I mean, everybody knows about this, but yeah, it's just impossible for us to say, oh yeah, we're just going to open, but we can certainly try. Let's see.
So, Arjen, can I just ask, does that sort of weekend opening include Manado, or is that just Lembe?
Well, Manado is the doors are open all day, all week in Manado, and that mostly has everything to do with the fact that Manado is closer, of course, to the city of Manado. So we're able to receive a relatively higher number of guests there, provided that they are coming. The thing with Lembe, of course, on the island itself, there's not any tourism, so we are quite dependent on whatever is, people who are willing to make the trip from Bitung, the harbor, to here to Lembe. So, it's an experiment, and we have to kind of see how that goes.
Sure.
And yeah, just take it day by day, actually. And yeah, just a couple more comments from people. Rudy Bloemen. Rudy is from Belgium, and he is the photographer of our signature turtle picture. I'm sure you're aware of that photo. Yeah, that was a great shot, one of the best turtle shots I've seen. Katrien is saying, thank you, Graham, and to all, stay safe. Big hugs to the Lhasa team and to Yvonne and Nico. We miss you already. Jürgen is saying, thank you very much. It's always interesting, and see you soon. Well, thank you, everyone, to all the viewers, for everyone checking in with us. This episode did not go without its problems. It's raining now here, so I don't know how well my connection is coming across for you, Graham, but...
no, it's still good.
Okay, well, that's encouraging. And let's see here. Oh, Jo van Geert. Oh, I apologize. Yes, the turtle was not made by Rudy, but by Jo van Geert. Very correct. We have Simone here in the chat, so yeah. So I think that's about it. We're just fighting with signal here. If Simone is popping in, I want to give her the opportunity to talk to us. one more time. Let's see if she can connect. So let's just give her a couple of seconds to see if this will work. No, it doesn't look like it will improve anytime soon. Yeah, no, and she popped out again. So Graham, thank you very much for joining us. And is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I'd encourage people to give it a go, and you know, the more photographs you take, the better they are. I know that I was very happy with my photographs from 4 or 5 years ago. I look at them now and I'm unhappy with them, but I was happy with them then, and I just encourage people to get out there and try it. And I think some people think maybe if you're concentrating on taking photographs, you're not looking at what's around you. I beg to completely differ and go, I think if you're taking photographs, you're really concentrating on what's around you. Maybe not the environment as you're taking the photograph, but trust me, you're really concentrating on the environment. So get out there and give it a go.
All right. Yep. Sounds great. Yeah, Simone is trying and trying and trying. It just doesn't work. I really feel sorry for her. So anyway, once again, thank you very much. To everyone watching, thank you very much. And I see there's one comment from Marion Lisa. Greet Yuri training to open Lembe. That looks a little bit cryptic. I think her autocorrect is not working. So I'm... anyway. Oh, Simone is back. Let's see if this works. One more time. Let's try one more time.
I'm not taking a bet on it.
No.
That was it. Oh.
Right, Simone. The mic is yours if you can take it.
No, I think we're done.
Okay, guys.
I think you might want to call it, Arjen.
I think we're going to call it. So, Simone, I'm very sorry about this. Kasiang, as we say here in North Sulawesi. Once again, thank you very much. And
thank you.
Yeah, and she's thrown out again. Graham, thank you.
Pleasure.
Hope to see you sooner rather than later.
I hope so.
Yeah, that would be very nice. Please say hi to everybody over there. Matthew, thank you for your contribution as well. And with that, I want to thank so many thanks. Let's see. Oh, wait, she's back. Simone, can you hear me? One more time, one last time. I hate to do this, but we're going to, yeah.
I go crazy.
I know. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye.